Hey everyone, welcome back to Area 616. It's been a strange couple of months. Marvel fans went from having a solid, exciting MCU future to, within the span of a few weeks, a very unsure one. Literally all of the known MCU projects but one has changed release dates at least once, extending outside of even just Phase 4. I could make a whole video going over the changes throughout that, but instead I'd rather talk about the future, Phase 5. So I figured for my first video in 9 months, I'll talk about everything we know about Phase 5 as of this video. I'll go over each of the movies being released, when we can expect to see them and what we know about them, as well as go over some likely surprise releases that haven't been announced yet. But first, some things to note. I won't be discussing Disney Plus shows as that would make this video an hour long, but I would like to make a video dedicated to just them in the future. And I won't be discussing any Spuck movies unless they directly tie into the MCU. And finally, I don't know if you noticed, but things are pretty up in the air, so this list is very subject to change and likely won't end up with the same dates. So, with all that said, here is everything we know about Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as of this video's release.
Move, Captain. I won't ask a second time.
Confirmed for May 6, 2022, last August at the D23 Expo, so far Black Panther II is one of the only 2 Phase 5 movies with confirmed set-in-stone release dates, and on top of that, it is the aforementioned one movie that hasn't changed dates. Basically, the whole gang is returning from the first film. Ryan Coogler will write and direct, and Chadwick Boseman, Letitia Wright, Denai Guerrera, Winston Duke, Angela Bassett, and Martin Freeman have all been confirmed to be coming back. It's also been reported that Michael B. Jordan may return as Killmonger in T'Challa's ancestral plane, but that's unconfirmed. I think it's also safe to assume that Lupita Nyong'o will return as Nakia. So everyone's back, but this isn't your average Black Panther film. It has the coveted May release slot, which indicates that it's intended to have big repercussions for the MCU moving forward. When you take a look at the rumored villain, it's not hard to imagine why. As of right now, it basically comes down to 2 options. Namor, the King of Atlantis and much cooler than Aquaman, don't at me, and Dr. Doom, the ruler of Latveria, classic Fantastic Four foe, and basically Marvel's equivalent to Darth Vader. Both have precedents for fighting Black Panther in the comics. In Avengers vs. X-Men, a Phoenix-enhanced Namor nearly leveled Wakanda with a tidal wave, sparking a hatred between the two of them that continues to this day. And then there's the event Doom War, which featured Dr. Doom and his armies attempting to invade Wakanda to get their vibranium. That story is notable for 2 things. First, being that at the time it was Shuri who was Black Panther, not T'Challa. Doom War also co-starred basically everyone else, but most notably the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Deadpool. So some have speculated this could serve as a jumping-off point for all of the Fox characters. I wouldn't go that far personally. I mean, maybe the Fantastic Four. Black Panther did make his debut in a Fantastic Four comic after all, so it would be somewhat fitting, but even that's kind of pushing it for me. That being said, which one of these villains is most likely? Well, it's notable that evidence is building for Namor's imminent debut. We will reportedly witness the sinking of Atlantis in Eternals next year. And in August 2019, Marvel sent out a casting call for a character named David, 30 to 40 years old, who is described as the ruler of an ancient, distant kingdom, preferably of Asian descent, as well as his general. The obvious conclusion is that this is Namor and his general/future enemy Krang. At the time, then Doctor Strange 2 director Scott Derrickson tweeted a picture of Namor battling Doctor Strange. He claimed it wasn't a tease or anything, but if Namor is coming soon, and to Doctor Strange 2, him being the villain of Black Panther II quite simply makes sense. Although, now that those 2 movies are releasing within a month of each other, that might be an inhibitor. But it's also worth noting, Namor is rarely ever a flat-out villain. He's always been more of an anti-hero of sorts, who often ends up on the wrong side of things due to his own self-interests. So it's possible that there's maybe another villain who's pulling the strings and manipulating Namor behind the scenes.
Hi, I'm Peter Parker.
Hey, Peter Parker. You got something for me?
Set for July 8th, 2022, we really only know 3 things for sure about Captain Marvel 2. Brie Larson is returning for it. It'll be set in the MCU's modern day, which is to say 2023/2024, and it's currently being written by Megan McDonnell, who also worked on WandaVision. So while I think it's safe to assume that actors like Teyonah Parris, Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, and Jude Law will return, it's not a guarantee. But it's recently been reported that famed TV director Michelle MacLaren is Marvel's top choice to direct, and may even have a shot at the helm for Avengers 5. Marvel Studios seems to be building up a big secret invasion / Kree Skrull war story. But so far, both of the rumored plots for Captain Marvel 2 don't have much to do with that. The first that came not long after McDonnell's announcement was that the movie would center around Carol as an agent of S.W.O.R.D. when the Peak, S.W.O.R.D's satellite HQ, is infiltrated by the Brood, a race of body-stealing, carnivorous insect alien things. According to this leak, Carol then assembles the A-Force, or Marvel's all-female Avengers team, to fight this invasion. The other leak states that the main villain will be Michael Korvac, and that the movie will not only introduce Richard Rider Nova to the MCU, but also feature the return of the OG Guardians, aka the 5 Ravager heads we met in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This makes some sense, as in the comics, Korvac is a superpowered warlord who hails from the same alternate future these original Guardians came from, although there's been no indication in the MCU so far that these 5 are from any alternate future timelines. Personally, I think the Brood story sounds more exciting, but I also think the Korvac one is more likely simply because of how it connects to everything else. It's notable that the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes version of Michael Korvac had him as a Kree experiment, so maybe this could be a tie-in. Maybe they could find a way to combine the 2 versions. In the comics, the future Korvac comes from an apocalyptic timeline where the alien race, the Badoon, have conquered the entire galaxy. But Marvel actually doesn't have the film rights to the Badoon, so maybe instead of them, it could be the Kree. And that future is what's coming if Carol and her allies can't stop the coming catastrophe.
See, the rules of the quantum realm aren't like they are up here. Everything is unpredictable. Is that anybody's sandwich? I'm starving.
Alright, this is where things start to get a smidgen out of order, but I'll be presenting the full, most likely Phase 5 lineup at the end, complete with my fun potential title guesses. So, Ant-Man 3 was supposed to come out on February 18th, 2022. It was all but confirmed, with filming set to start in January 2021, which pretty clearly points towards a February release. But obviously after Thor got moved into that date, everything got kind of thrown amok. As of right now, the information at hand points towards the movie likely arriving a year later, on February 17th, 2023. So far, we actually know a fair amount about this. Peyton Reed is returning to direct, and so far Paul Rudd and Jeff Loveness have both written drafts of the script. We also know that Evangeline Lilly, Emma Furman, and Michael Douglas are returning, so I think it's safe to assume everyone else is too. According to recent reports, some details have been revealed about Rudd's initial script, including that the main villain is the science-based evil organization AIM, who you may remember from Iron Man 3, and their new floating, mentally unhinged leader, MODOK, a cult classic Marvel villain who's just perfect for an Ant-Man movie. But honestly, if they don't make him a giant floating head, they can keep it. Also, it's been recently teased that Sonny Birch may return as well, implying that his mysterious benefactor was in fact MODOK the whole time. Another big detail, it also reportedly serves as the MCU debut of the Young Avengers, which makes sense considering one of their members is Scott Lang's daughter Cassie, after she gets a pimp suit of her own. The rumor is that this will set up a Young Avengers project. It has been reported that Marvel is taking pitches for that as we speak. It's not confirmed if it's a movie or a Disney Plus series, but the latter seems the most likely at this time. Regardless, unless the script undergoes some major departures from Paul Rudd's initial drafts, we know that the villain will be MODOK and that in some way this will set up the arrival of the Young Avengers.
Came back to finish you off.
Like Ant-Man 3, we had pretty solid information regarding Blade's release date from internet scooper Charles Murphy, who has proven himself to be the most reliable in the business. He speculated that Blade would be the October 7th, 2022 date, and after the delays, a source inside Disney confirmed that, saying that Murphy's original 2022 lineup, which looked like this, was 100% accurate, but now uncertain after the delays. This was further muddled by Doctor Strange's move to March 2022, which forced Sony's animated Spider-Verse 2 from April 2022 to October 7th. All the more confusing, Disney has yet to stop listing this date as a Marvel Studios release on their website. The implication is that Marvel is still considering putting a movie out later in 2022, and that either Spider-Verse 2 or Blade will have to move. I do think they will keep it as Blade, as Marvel tends to have an unspoken rule of one new franchise per year. By that point, there will have been already 4 movies in 2022, so it wouldn't be absurd to move it into the next year, but doing so would completely muddy that year's schedule too. So I'd personally expect Marvel to find a spot for Blade in the later half of 2022, even if it doesn't end up being October 7th, although I personally hope Spider-Verse 2 can find another date. Besides that, all we really know is that Blade will star Mahershala Ali, and it will directly tie into the Moon Knight Disney Plus series, specifically with characters like Werewolf by Night and Count Dracula, who are supposedly set to appear in both. This has led to the conclusion that despite the popular consensus, Marvel's Blade likely won't be R-rated. After all, does it really make sense to connect a TV-14 series on a family-friendly streaming service to an R-rated movie half of the show's audience wouldn't be able to see? I hope they can figure something out, but for those of you hoping for Blade's movies to continue to be R-rated, I'd instead prepare for some bad news.
Not necessary.
There shall be no knifing one another. Everybody knows who's in charge.
Guardians Volume 3 has had a lot of bad luck. It was originally supposed to come out on May 1st, 2020, but as we all remember, Gunn got fired and then rehired, but by that time he had begun development on a Suicide Squad movie for DC, meaning Marvel would have to wait until he was finished to begin work on Volume 3. You may have seen some headlines recently saying that it will start shooting in February 2021, but it's important to note that Gunn himself has confirmed multiple times that it will not start shooting in 2021. Charles Murphy has revealed that recently the proposed starting date was January 2022, like Ant-Man 3, for a May 5th, 2023 release, which makes the most sense to me. Okay, just a bit of a twist I found while editing this. Gunn has also debunked this January 2022 starting date. I do still think May 2023 is the most likely release, but it seems like it's more likely that Volume 3 starts around January and not in it. So in, say, February or March, which would line up with Volume 2's production schedule. Because the script for this movie is fully written, some big leaks have led to us actually knowing more about this than we do most Phase 4 releases. We know that the entire cast is returning, but that was obvious, and that the movie will introduce Adam Warlock. Again, obvious. But not so obvious is that the main villain would be the High Evolutionary, an insane egomaniacal experimenter who here is reportedly responsible for not only Adam's creation, but also Rocket. We will reportedly see Rocket's home of Half-World and meet his lover, Lila. New characters introduced will include Beta Ray Bill, as one of the High Evolutionary's creations, and Moondragon, who in the comics is the daughter of Drax. Also, Thor will reportedly play a role, but not necessarily a big one. Some rumors say he will fight the High Evolutionary's clone of himself, Nobilis, and that's why they cut a Thor vs. Thor fight out of Avengers Endgame. Some recent occurrences have beckoned towards this leak being true. Namely, Gunn has revealed that Volume 3 will revolve heavily around Rocket, which fits with this. And also, Thor 4 director Taika Waititi revealed that he wants Beta Ray Bill in Love and Thunder, but that he wasn't sure if they'd be able to. That only makes sense if you consider the possibility that Gunn has Bill in his Volume 3 script, forcing Marvel to choose which director gets to use him. Personally, I'm honestly hoping they go with Waititi for this one, because Bill isn't an experiment. He's part of an actual species in his own right, and in fact, that's actually very important to his character. He's the protector of that species. Regardless, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will likely arrive on May 5th, 2023.
I just saw the ad and thought it looked fun.
You're in.
You've probably seen all sorts of headlines lately saying that Deadpool co-creator Rob Liefeld says Deadpool 3 is not in the works from Marvel Studios. Please just ignore this. It absolutely is. The reality is that Liefeld, who was a producer on the previous 2 Deadpool movies, likely saw the Deadpool 3 production grid that is out there right now and saw that his name wasn't on it and pitched a fit. He claimed to have seen Marvel Studios' release schedule for the next 5 years, which is something that the majority of the actors in the movie don't get to see. But he saw it, yeah, sure. Look, Deadpool 3 is happening, and will likely arrive in either 2022 or 2023, although I tend to lean towards the latter considering Ryan Reynolds' insane schedule. It's been confirmed countless times by countless people that an R-rated Deadpool 3 is happening. Ryan Reynolds even met with Marvel Studios in November, but let's entertain the idea that Liefeld wasn't lying and that somehow he saw Marvel's future slate, which they don't show to anyone. Sure, there's a potential explanation for that too. As far back as December 2018, Bob Iger has been quoted as saying that there were talks about having Deadpool spearhead an R-rated films division for Marvel. These talks morphed into them saying that, specifically, they wanted to find a way to make it absolutely clear when it's a regular MCU film and an R-rated MCU film. And the simplest way to do that is to have a studio logo that indicates that. Well, recently the Deadpool 3 screenwriters revealed that they believe the film will be released under the Disney-owned 20th Century Studios, the implication being that this would be something like the Marvel-Sony deal over Spider-Man, except in this case, Disney owns both studios, so Marvel would have complete creative control. If this is the case, it's possible Deadpool 3 might release on 20th Century's schedule instead of Marvel Studios, which might explain why Liefeld wouldn't have seen it if he did really see specifically Marvel Studios' schedule, which again, he didn't. Regardless, this actually would make sense. It would clearly indicate that it's not your typical Marvel Studios picture, while still being a part of the MCU, and being on 20th Century's schedule would allow Reynolds and co. more freedom about when they can release to best fit his schedule, as opposed to fighting for openings in Marvel's crowded schedule every 3 to 4 years. So that's definitely something to think about. Bottom line, Marvel Studios is involved. It seems likely it'll arrive on July 28th, 2023. If it is with 20th Century, which I do think is very possible, it might take one of these slots across 2022 or 2023. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to say it's July 28th.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker. What the
Everything else here is just rumored to be a part of Phase 5, but not quite confirmed. First of all, Spider-Man 4. Make no mistake, Spider-Man 4 is definitely happening. The question is whether or not it will be part of the MCU. Personally, I think it's very likely it will be, as both studios are clearly into maintaining their partnership. If this is the case, it would likely be dated by Sony in late June or early July, which would also likely push whatever's in the later July date to, say, August 11th, which is another Disney slot. Although it is possible that because Spider-Man 3 was delayed to November, they may choose to push Spider-Man 4 back to give Holland the chance to, breathe? Like, have a break? Anyway, next option, Spider-Woman. Sony is reportedly developing this. Just this week, it was reported that S.J. Clarkson is attached to a female-led Spuck movie, although that is most likely Madam Web. The rumor is that Marvel Studios wants to make a new deal to co-produce the Spider-Woman movie so that she can be a more active part of the MCU as well. No clue how that might work out, but it's worth mentioning, and I hope it does. Just because it is so unsure, I'm not going to put Spider-Woman on the final schedule. Hopefully Sony can get down to this, once they're done with the epic saga of everyone's favorite character, Jackpot. And of course, there is the final Marvel Studios 2023 date, November 3rd, 2023. As of right now, there's no shortage of possibilities. It could be Eternals 2, Black Widow 2, Thunderbolts, The Fantastic Four, David Ayer's Suicide. But with the more recent evidence at hand, it all points towards one movie in particular, Nova, starring Richard Rider. It just recently entered active development at Marvel Studios, meaning they're looking for a writer as we speak, something that could lend credence to him being in Captain Marvel 2. This all points towards it releasing in 2023, and with the slate that I've proposed so far, November is the most reasonable date. Now, if the whole Deadpool at 20th Century thing does happen, that might open up Nova to being in July and leave November open again, which was likely the original plan. But again, for the sake of simplicity, this is how I'm going to put it for now. Okay, so with all of that said, here is the most likely Phase 5 lineup with the information we have as of right now, in late May 2020, along with my fun little guesses at what the title will be. On May 6th, 2022, Black Panther Ultimatum. On July 8th, Captain Marvel The Korvac Quest. On October 7th, Blade Tomb of Dracula. And moving into 2023, on February 17th, Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Young Avengers. On May 5th, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. On June 23rd, Spider-Man The Sinister Six. On July 28th, Deadpool Saves the Marvel Universe. And finally, on November 3rd, Nova. And with all that said, that finally concludes this. This is a long one. But what do you guys think? Do you like what you've heard about Phase 5 so far, or do you feel like there are things lacking? I know there are a lot of people out there who were really hoping to see both the X-Men and Fantastic Four by the end of it, and it's still possible, but it seems less likely now. So let us know in the comments what you're thinking, and if you've stuck around this long, hi, I'm back, for now, at least. Sorry I was gone so long. My next video is coming up pretty soon. It's my pretty great theory on how mutants will be introduced in the MCU. I don't want to brag or anything, but I am actually very proud of it. I'm sure someone else has thought of it, made a video about it, but I'm going to do it too. So look forward to that, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.